Have you ever been sitting in your favorite chair, maybe reading the newspaper or watching your favorite show, and you suddenly feel a strange tingling in your feet? Almost like tiny bubbles popping under the skin. Or maybe it's more of a dull ache, like your feet are wrapped in cotton. You shift around, try rubbing them, maybe even walk it off, but something just feels off. Now, here's the thing. We all expect a few aches and pains as we get older. That's part of the deal, right? A little stiffness in the morning, maybe a knee that talks back when the weather changes, but sometimes the body tries to whisper something a bit more serious. And if we don't listen, that whisper can turn into a shout. That's what I want to talk to you about today. If you're over 65 and you feel certain things in your legs or feet, it could be your body trying to get your attention, and the sooner we listen, the better off we'll be. I'm not trying to scare you, far from it. I want to empower you, because knowing what to look out for can help you stay ahead of the curve, stay independent, and stay living life the way you want to. So let's settle in, just the two of us, and have an honest conversation. If you've got a warm cup of tea or coffee nearby, even better. Now, one of the first signs you might notice is something that can be easy to brush off. A kind of numbness or tingling that starts to creep into your toes or the soles of your feet. You might feel like you're walking on a sponge or like your socks are bunched up even when you're barefoot. Sound familiar? That weird pins and needles feeling might come and go at first. You'll tell yourself it's probably just poor circulation from sitting too long. And maybe it is, but if it keeps happening, or if it's getting worse over time, it's worth paying attention to. See, our nerves, those tiny little wires that run throughout our legs and feet, can start to wear down or get damaged as we age. Especially if we've had high blood sugar, smoked in the past, or even just had years of wear and tear. When those nerves don't fire properly, you might feel that buzzing, tingling, or numb sensation. And here's the kicker. If it keeps going unchecked, it can start to affect your balance. You might not notice uneven ground as easily. You might start walking differently without even realizing it, just to avoid discomfort. Before long, that small sensation can turn into a big problem, especially when it comes to things like falling. And let me just pause here to say, if this resonates with you, don't panic. You're not alone. Many people feel this and just think it's part of getting older. But it doesn't have to be that way. There are things you can do to manage it, slow it down, or in some cases even improve it. But the first step is simply recognizing that it's happening. Now, let's talk about another sensation that people often chalk up to just aging, but really shouldn't ignore. Have you ever noticed a heaviness in your legs? Like they feel weighed down, especially when you're walking. Not just tired, heavy, as if you're dragging around ankle weights all day. You go up a flight of stairs and it feels like a mountain. You walk to the mailbox and have to stop and catch your breath, not because your lungs are struggling, but because your legs just don't feel like they want to cooperate. That heaviness can be a subtle sign that your circulation isn't what it used to be. Maybe your blood isn't flowing as freely through your legs, and your muscles aren't getting the oxygen they need to keep up. This can start to cause cramps, fatigue, or that dull aching that shows up more often toward the end of the day. You might even find yourself avoiding walks or skipping that evening stroll because it just doesn't feel comfortable anymore. And little by little you start doing less, which leads to feeling worse, which leads to doing even less. It becomes a quiet cycle, and before you know it, you're not moving like you used to. I spoke with a gentleman not long ago, let's call him Ray, who used to love working in his garden. He told me that over the course of a year, he just stopped going out there. He said his legs felt tired all the time. At first, he blamed it on getting older, but after some encouragement from his wife and a checkup with his doctor, he found out he had some narrowing in the arteries in his legs. It wasn't serious yet, but it could have become serious if he'd kept ignoring it. Ray started making a few changes, more movement during the day, a couple dietary shifts, even started doing some light stretching, nothing extreme, but within a few months that heavy feeling in his legs started to fade. And guess what? He's back out in his garden now, putting in new tomatoes for spring. And that's really the heart of this conversation. It's not about fear, it's about awareness. It's about knowing what to look for, listening to your body, and taking action before a small issue becomes a big one. So if you're sitting there now, maybe you felt that numbness or that strange heaviness and just thought, well, that's just what happens when you get older. I want you to know, no, it's not something you have to just accept. You deserve to feel strong and confident when you move. You deserve to walk across the room without worrying about your legs giving out or your feet feeling strange. Try this with me for a second. Sit upright and gently lift one foot off the ground. Hold it there. Can you keep it up for 10 seconds without it wobbling too much? How does it feel? Steady or a little uncertain? That small test tells you a lot about your balance and strength, and even more about how connected your legs and feet are to the rest of your body. If you're still with me, go ahead and type the number 2 in the comments, just so I know you're here, listening, and that you care about your health. I read every comment and I love seeing how many of us are taking charge of our well-being together. Let's keep going, because there's more to uncover about what your legs and feet might be trying to tell you. And remember, it's never too late to start paying attention. I think one of the hardest parts of getting older isn't just the physical stuff. The aches, the slower mornings, the little reminders that our bodies have been around the block a few times. It's the uncertainty. When something starts to feel off, it's easy to wonder, is this serious or am I overthinking it? That little tug of doubt can keep us quiet when we really should be paying attention, so let's keep paying attention together. There's another feeling I want to talk about, and it's something that can sneak up on you, often without warning. Picture this. You're walking through the grocery store, maybe halfway down the cereal aisle, and suddenly you get this deep, tight cramp in your calf. Not just a little discomfort, I mean the kind that makes you stop in your tracks and pretend to look at something on the shelf so you can rub your leg without drawing attention. That kind of cramping, especially when it shows up during walking and fades when you rest, is one of those signs many folks mistake for just being out of shape. But it can actually be a signal that your legs aren't getting enough blood flow during activity. Doctors have a name for it. We don't need to get into that, but the important thing is understanding what your body's trying to tell you. Think of it like this. When you walk, your muscles ask for more oxygen. They need good blood flow. But if the pipes, your arteries, are a little clogged or narrowed, the blood has a harder time getting through. Your muscles complain in the only language they know, pain, and they stop complaining as soon as you stop moving, because the demand for oxygen drops. That's why it seems to go away when you rest. But that pattern is important to notice. It's not just a nuisance, it's a message. I once met a woman named Lorraine at a local community center event. She was full of energy, sharp as a tack, but she mentioned she'd stopped going on walks with her neighbor, said her calves just weren't what they used to be. After we talked a bit, she got checked out. Turns out her arteries had narrowed, and she caught it before it became a serious issue. With a few lifestyle changes and some guided exercise, she was back to her morning walks. Slower at first, sure, but building strength again with every step. Sometimes we just need that little nudge, a reminder that we're worth taking care of. Now, another sensation that often gets brushed aside, especially by those of us who've always been tough or used to pain, is burning or sharp shooting sensations in the feet. Have you ever had that, like your feet are on fire when you lay down at night, or you get sudden jolts of pain, like stepping on a thumbtack, even though there's nothing there? It can be startling and confusing, because sometimes your feet look perfectly normal, no swelling, no redness, but they hurt, and not just a little. That burning or stabbing pain, especially when it shows up during rest or sleep, can be a sign that the nerves in your feet are under stress. You might even start to notice that your sense of touch changes. Socks feel different, the floor might seem colder or hotter than usual, or you might not feel small pebbles in your shoes the way you used to, which, let me tell you, can be dangerous. Not feeling things properly can lead to injuries you don't even notice at first. One man I spoke with, Harold, a retired postman, told me he didn't notice a blister on his foot until it turned into something much worse. Because the nerves in his feet were so dulled, he simply didn't feel it developing. And since he'd always been the type to push through pain, he ignored it longer than he should have. Thankfully, he got help in time, but it stuck with him. Now, he checks his feet every night before bed, and he says it's one of the simplest, smartest things he's ever started doing. If you're feeling anything like this, the burning, the zapping, the walking on hot coals sensation, please, take it seriously. I know it's tempting to brush it off, we've all done it. But this isn't about being tough, it's about being smart. Being curious about your body, not dismissive of it. Now, I know we're covering some heavy stuff here, but here's the good news. Every one of these signs we've talked about so far, from tingling to cramping to burning, is your body giving you a chance to catch something early, a chance to shift gears, to speak up, to act. And the earlier you act, the more power you have. That's the beautiful thing. We don't need to wait for some dramatic wake-up call. Our bodies are nudging us, whispering, even sending little warning flares. All we have to do is notice. Take a moment now, think back over the last few weeks. Have you had any strange sensations in your legs or feet that didn't seem to have a clear cause? Did you feel off after walking a short distance? Are you avoiding certain activities, walks, stairs, even errands, because of how your legs feel? These questions aren't meant to worry you, they're meant to wake you up. Because life after 65 doesn't have to mean shrinking back. It can be a time to feel stronger, more aware, more alive than ever before. But only if we stay tuned in. And hey, if any part of this is resonating with you, if something we've talked about today sounds familiar, would you do me a favor and just say, "I'm listening" in the comments? I can't tell you how encouraging it is to see so many of you engaged, asking questions and sharing your stories. It reminds me that we're all walking this road together. Different paths, sure, but the same desire. To feel good, to stay strong, and to keep doing the things we love. Let's keep going. There are still a few more signs we need to talk about. Signs that can change the course of your health if you catch them early. And remember, this isn't just about problems, it's about possibilities. Every sign we notice is a step towards something better. You know, I think the most powerful thing we can do as we age isn't to try to stop time. It's to pay attention to how we're living through it. And our legs and feet, well, they carry us through this life. They hold us up, step by step, year after year. So when they start sending us signals, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's our body saying, hey, I need a little help here. There's one more feeling that can really catch people off guard. It's not pain necessarily, not a tingle or a cramp. It's something deeper and often harder to explain. A sense of unsteadiness. You stand up from the couch and feel like the floor is shifting. Or you walk into the kitchen and suddenly feel unsure of your footing, like your legs aren't quite doing what you asked them to. And you start to worry, quietly, deep down, am I losing my balance? Am I going to fall? If you've felt that even once, I want you to know you're not alone. That unsteady feeling can creep in slowly, over months or even years. You might catch yourself holding onto furniture as you move around the house, or choosing the elevator instead of the stairs, not because you're tired, but because you're unsure. And look, there's no shame in that, no shame at all. But don't ignore it. That sense of instability can come from a few different places. Weak muscles, sure, but also problems with nerves, circulation, or even tiny changes in the inner ear. And here's the tricky part. We often don't notice it until it affects something big, like a close call at the top of the stairs, or a stumble in the driveway that leaves you sitting on the ground, heart racing, more from fear than pain. That fear of falling is real, and when it settles in, it changes things. You start avoiding movement, you skip walks, you let others carry the groceries, not because you can't, but because you're scared to. And every time you sit back instead of stepping forward, your strength fades just a little. Your balance dulls just a bit more. It's a quiet cycle, and it happens faster than you think. But here's the truth, it's not too late to turn that around. Not by a long shot. I've seen folks in their 70s and 80s regain confidence, strength, and balance by making just a few small, steady changes. Gentle leg exercises, walking routines, stretching in the morning. It adds up. The body remembers how to move, how to hold itself, how to be steady again. All it needs is the chance to practice. I met a couple last fall, Doris and Henry, both in their early 80s. Doris had been feeling unsure on her feet for months. She hadn't fallen, but she said it felt like walking on jello sometimes. Henry, bless his heart, started walking with her every morning just to the end of their street and back. Slow at first, arms linked. They added a few stretches after breakfast, just 5 minutes. And now, Doris says she feels stronger than she did 5 years ago. She doesn't need Henry's arm anymore, but she still takes it. Not because she has to, because she wants to. And that brings us to something I think is so important to remember. These signs. The tingling, the cramps, the heaviness, the unsteadiness, they're not fixed fates, they're clues. They're invitations to step in and say, okay, body, I hear you. Let's work on this together. Maybe that means checking in with your doctor. Maybe it means starting a gentle daily walk or cutting out 1 or 2 foods that slow your body down. Maybe it's just looking at your feet every night, getting to know them again. Simple things, but they add up. You don't have to overhaul your whole life. You don't need to train for a marathon or eat nothing but kale. What you do need is consistency, curiosity, and a willingness to believe that change is still possible, because it absolutely is. If you've felt any of the things we've talked about, if your legs or feet have been sending little warning signs, don't wait for a wake-up call. Start today. Take that walk. Stretch those ankles. Talk to someone you trust. And if you're not sure where to start, just start small. One new habit, one little promise to yourself. You deserve that. I want you to imagine something right now, a version of yourself, just a few months from now, moving with more ease, standing up from a chair without thinking twice, walking through the grocery store without those strange twinges or that heavy drag in your calves, feeling steady when you turn a corner, confident as you step into the world. That version of you is absolutely possible. It starts with paying attention, with listening to those signs, with choosing to act instead of waiting. If you're still with me right now, I want you to do one more thing. Type the word hope in the comments. Because that's what this is really about. Not fear, not age, hope. And every single one of us deserves to carry that hope forward, one step at a time. So take care of those legs, those feet, that amazing body of yours. It's gotten you this far. Let's make sure it keeps going strong so you can keep living, walking, laughing, and loving the life you've built. And if you found this helpful, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone you care about, someone who might be feeling these signs and doesn't know what they mean. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so we can keep having these real, honest conversations together. Because this isn't just about living longer, it's about living better. And I believe with all my heart, you still have some of the best years ahead of you. Stay strong, stay curious, and never stop listening to your body. It's wiser than you think.